What's up, y'all? What's up? Welcome to the Pugilistic Linguistic Show. I'm your host, Michael Foster, the voice of reason in an increasingly unreasonable world, and I am back. Before I get started, like I say all the time, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can know when I drop new episodes. Interact with the podcast. Get it out in the algorithm. I'm trying to get this out to the masses. Get this out to more people in 2026. Help a brother out. That being said, as I sit in my living room at Snowpocalypse 2026, I have run across a few things that have really, I don't want to say concern me, but just makes me scratch my head. And this is not going to be a popular topic. I know this up top. I might even offend a few people. If I'm doing it right, I probably will. But I want to speak about this LGBTQ society that we're currently living in. Now, let me start by saying I have nothing against LGBTQ people. I believe that you have the right to live your life in a way that makes you happy, as long as you don't hurt others while doing it. I am not coming from a place of these conservative talking heads of hate. I don't hate anybody. I dislike a lot of people, but I don't hate anybody. I believe you should live your life the way that makes you happy. Because at the end of the day, we're only here for a short amount of time. And you should be happy. That's just a given. But with all that being said, I also think that we live in a time to where I call it the slingshot era. We live so far to one side for so long that when it finally breaks, we don't do it sensibly. We slingshot to the opposite end of the spectrum. And now we're living on the other side of society for so long. And I think either extreme is crazy. For example, for far too long, gay people, lesbian, straight, I'm not, well, not straight, but gay people, lesbian, queer, trans, all that, they have been oppressed in society. Look up the Stonewall riots of 1971 if you have any questions about how they were treated historically. You know, and let me just say this, just in a effort for simplicity for this podcast sake, I'm going to say gay because it's just a shorter way to, it's a short word. When I say gay, I mean the entire movement, LGBTQIA plus, the whole 9 yards. Okay, so just understand that's what I mean by when I say gay in this context. But for far too long, gay people have been marginalized in society. And as a black man in America, I understand that. Hell, we're still being marginalized in society. So I can imagine what gay folk go through. There's no representation in media and whatever. And when there is some representation, it's that openly, overly, flamboyantly gay character that I'm sure gets old after a while. So I get it. But in today's society, now the representation and now the gays have begun to be recognized as humans, we flip to the other side to where everything is acceptable and nobody is willing to say, wait a minute, this don't make no damn sense. For example, case in point, in society, I am willing to identify you as you identify yourself. In society, if you say I identify as male and you're visibly female, I have no problem with that. I will call you he, I will call you him. Conversely, if you say you identify as female and you're externally male, I have no problem with that. I would identify you as she and her. I think that is only right, that is respectful. But there is a limitation to it. And here's what I mean by limitation. If I don't know how you identify and you present externally as something, I will refer to you as that something. If you externally identify, or better yet, if you externally present yourself as female, I have a tendency to call you she or her, not knowing how you identify. And you got to understand that. You present yourself externally as female. You cannot hold it against me if I refer to you as such. Consequently, if you present yourself externally as a male and I call you he or him, you're going to have to deal with that because you present yourself a certain way. So don't get upset with me when I refer to you that way. It's like me. If I walked around with a policeman's costume on all day long, somebody might mistake me for a police officer. I can't get mad at them for that because I present myself externally as such. So, either you deal with it or you just kindly and politely say, I identify as X or whatever. The one thing I can't get with, I cannot train my brain to, is the word they for an individual. They, for 50 some odd years of my life, has been plural. I cannot wrap my brain around they to refer to a person that I have no idea what you are. So I need to. There has to be some grace here. There has to be some grace. But that all takes a back seat when we get into the sports realm. Now, in society, you can identify however you want. You can identify as a palm tree if you want to, and I will refer to you as such. However, if we get into competition, I have a different belief system in that. I believe in sports to where speed and power are the determining factors. I believe that what you are biologically is who you should compete with. Now, it can get complex because women produce testosterone and men produce estrogen, of course, in lower numbers. Men have more testosterone, women have more estrogen. I get that. But in a sporting competition, I don't care if in society you identify as male, or better yet, identify as female. If you're a biological male, you need to compete with other men. And what kills me about that don't even sound like a groundbreaking thought. That isn't Jeopardy level decision making. This sounds like common sense to me in my small p brain. It's just, we're so reactionary as a society that when we finally acknowledge that gay people exist, we transition to the opposite side and say, let's throw all the rules out the window. Well, no. There was this swimmer, biologically male, but identified as a female. And I think, and I say she, I think she went as Leah Thomas or something like that. A few years ago, college. So they allowed her to compete with women. Now this cat was 6'7", 200 some odd pounds, just wrecking shop, just mowing these women down, setting records left and right, the whole 9 yards. And the kicker is, and I'm going to say he for this instance only, he was celebrated for having the courage to come out and do what, celebrated. No, he cheating. This is a man swimming with the women. When you get out the pool and you put your clothes on, we will identify you as a woman. But when you're in this pool in competition, you are a man. And the slowest man beats the fastest woman on most days. And was celebrated. And everybody was afraid to stop and say, wait a minute. This ain't right. This ain't fair. For fear of being labeled transphobic. And let me talk about that word for a second. The phobic word. Homophobic or transphobic or whatever. Phobic comes from the root phobia, meaning a fear of. If you have the nerve to step up and say, wait a minute, this ain't fair, it doesn't make you transphobic because you ain't scared of trans people. You just ain't afraid to call them out on their bullshit. And yes, trans people can be full of shit too. And can be called out every now and then. I don't care about being labeled transphobic because I know I'm not scared of trans people. I'm not scared of gay people. I'm not scared of anybody. I'm just not afraid to call you out on your bullshit. And that's bullshit. You cannot have men biologically who have testosterone coursing through their veins in a powerlifting competition against women. The women have no chance. Men are just naturally stronger. Contrary to what the local feminist tells you, men are naturally stronger. There's a reason they created women's sports. The women's 100-yard dash and 100-meter dash these days. The women's 200-meter dash. There's a reason why. Because they don't have a chance. Give me the fastest woman against Usain Bolt and tell me who wins. Give me the fastest woman against the dude that finished in 8th place in the 100-meter dash at the Olympics and tell me how that works out. There's a reason women's sports, there's a reason why there's women's basketball. Because the tallest woman might be 6'6", 6'7". That's a small forward in the NBA. Cardozo, who plays for the Chicago Sky, would have no chance against Shaq. nor is she supposed to. That's why women's sports was created. But he celebrated. Nobody stops and say, wait a minute, this ain't right. Now in sports like, let's say bowling, where power is a component, but that's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to knock 10 pins down. I know a lot of women that wear men's asses out in bowling. So that's not a sport to where being powerful inherently gives you an advantage. There's a finesse to the game. There's a technique to the game that women can master and beat the best guy. Sports like that, okay, fine. But any sport with a power component to where that is the primary goal of the sport, or a speed component where that's the primary goal of the sport, women don't have a chance. Nor should they. There's nothing wrong with accepting gays in society as humans. That's the way it's supposed to be. But there's also nothing wrong with saying, wait a minute, there should be rules to this shit. There needs to be a limit to this. Let's make common sense rules and understand this is not coming from, where these typical conservatives come from as a hate thing. I don't hate them. I got some good gay friends. They're good people. I don't give a. And then let me back up a little bit. Let me go off on my tangent. Why the hell do we care about gay any damn way? All gay means is who you're physically attracted to. And again, when I say gay, I mean the entire spectrum of the LGBTQIA plus, the whole 9 yards. That is generally what a physical attraction to, or an internal feeling of who you are as a person. Why the hell do I care? Being gay don't mean you can't cut your grass on a Saturday like everybody else. Being gay doesn't mean you go down the street and go get some McDonald's like everybody else. Being gay doesn't mean that your ass don't stink if you don't wash it in days like everybody else. Why do I care what you do in your bedroom or your kitchen or on top of your laundry, on top of your washing machine? Why the hell do I care? Why the hell should you care? Meet people where they are. It's a person. But since we have these asinine rules, I think there should be some common sense to them. I don't restrict a gay person in society at all. Do you? Be happy. Do your thing. But I also believe that in a realm of competition, there needs to be some common sense rules. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think anybody should get mad at me for that. How you gonna get mad at me for saying a biological male should not be competing against women? How you get mad at me for that? How unreasonable are you to where that makes you angry? Explain to me in the comments if that makes you angry and tell me why. Again, there are some serious oppression going on out here, especially from these conservative types who come from a position of hatred. They want to repress it all. Like there's big uproars about gay representation on television. Oh my God, God forbid 2 men kiss. I don't give a damn. Well, my kid can see this. Why is your kid watching a show that 2 men would be kissing anyway? This ain't happening at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. These are on shows like Grey's Anatomy and ER and stuff like that. Why the hell is your kid watching that in the first place? That's a whole different conversation. That might be the next podcast. I don't want to have to explain that to my child. What, you want to explain real life to your kid? Hey, sometimes men love men. Sometimes women love women. That's their life. That's what they decide to do. Well, it's going to make them gay. No, it ain't. You can't make people gay. That's just stupid. And you're an idiot parent for thinking that. But again, even though we accept this in society, as we should, there needs to be some common sense rules around. Because there are common sense rules around heterosexual people. So why should gay people have no rules? I can't walk into a woman's bathroom. I'm a heterosexual male. I can't walk into a woman's bathroom and use it. I shouldn't be able to. That's a rule. You know why I shouldn't say this, but fuck it. I also think if you identify as something, I believe you should complete the transition before you should to be accepted in that side. Here's what I'm trying to say. A man can identify as a woman, fine. But until that man finishes hormone replacement therapy and do gender reassignment surgery, he's still a man. He just identifies as something else. And I think if you're still a man, you should use men's bathrooms and men's facilities in public. Now, people who dress up as the opposite gender, that becomes a little more complex. Different conversation for a different day. I get it. You identify as a woman, but you're technically, biologically a man. Use the men's facilities for the 30 seconds you got to pee and get on down. Because that is a different conversation to have. Why is this man in the woman's bathroom to a child or to anybody? Yeah, I know this is not going to be popular. I understand this might come across as a bit Archie Bunkerish, but I believe what I believe and I said what I said. Them 30 seconds that you got to pee, go use the men's bathroom. Go in the stall if you have to, but use the facilities that suit you or fit you biologically. I honestly, again, don't think that's unreasonable. Nobody knows. Again, if you dress a certain way, if you dress as the opposite sex or opposite gender, that's a different conversation for a different day. We have to figure that out. But I don't think that's unreasonable. But again, I'm an old school thinker. I'm a linear thinker. I'm an A to B thinker. I'm very binary with my thought process. And the world is filled with gray. And I'm truly a black and white thinker. So maybe I'm wrong. But I don't think so. So again, if you want to identify as a certain way in society, I'm willing to identify you the way that you want to be. But when we get to competition, I think you should compete with who you're closely related to biologically. And I don't think that's unreasonable. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. All right, y'all, I'm going to get on down. I think I done pissed off enough people for the day. I wouldn't be surprised if people are at my door with torches and signs and shit in the next few days. Giving myself too much credit. Not enough people listen to this to get that mad. But anyway, let's get me out there. But in the meantime, in between time, let me say to you, as I say all the time, take care of yourself and each other, because we all we got. All right? Peace.